Sean, how the hell are you?
Fantastic. Now, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good, and
Good.
I have a New Year's resolution, even though it's June or it's June at this stage. I'd say if anyone notices, we're recording this miles in advance because we have a new edition ready for the house.
Mhm.
And as I was about to say that, I was about to say I have a New Year's resolution, and it was that I don't talk nonsense at the start of the podcast, and I've already messed that up. So,
I
Sean,
don't think I've ever listened to a podcast where that didn't occur anyway. So
so Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself.
yeah. I suppose growing up, I was heavily involved in martial arts. That was kind of my background.
Cool.
How I got into sports stuff. I was never really into ball sports. It wasn't really my forte. So it was kind of martial arts that I fell into. And then in terms of the physical side of things, I suppose I had various stages where I was both overweight and underweight to a degree. So I've kind of been there on every spectrum in terms of physicality and stuff. So it was actually through martial arts then that I got involved with the gym and just wanted to improve kind of my strength and conditioning for the martial arts. But I actually kind of veered off in that direction then and just got more into the gym, more and more into it and stuff. Um, yeah, and then eventually kind of injuries and stuff stopped me from playing proper sport. So just went fully into the gym really. Yeah.
Very cool. So look, I'm. This isn't something we'd kind of decided to chat about, but I'm interested in it because it's always something that comes up in terms of martial
Mhm.
arts, in terms of what that teaches you growing up. Like it's such a
Yeah.
respect based thing. Like, is that? Do you reckon that's affected how you are as a man, as a coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it gave me a certain amount of discipline that I definitely wouldn't have without it, or that I would have had to work very hard at to build up without it. So yeah, to be honest, it's something that I'd recommend everyone to do, especially if you don't really find a sport that you're into.
Mm.
Just giving some martial arts a go is absolutely fantastic idea. It's fed into kind of everything that I do. I think, to be honest, at this stage.
Unreal. And as I was talking about that, the new edition, I think one sport, based on just everyone that's talked about it that
Yeah,
I've chatted to, it's one thing that she's going to be forced to do.
definitely exciting times for you anyway.
Yeah, Jesus, we're a while away from getting a black belt anyway. We're
Yeah.
not quite at that stage. Look, Sean, so you talked about your own story a little bit. You kind of said you've on either end of the spectrum with in terms of weight,
Mhm.
above weight. You've kind of been overweight, underweight, all that sort of stuff. Tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about that story. Where is it kind of
Yeah, I
veered?
suppose it just naturally as a child, I just kind of started gaining a little bit more weight. I suppose I started quite lean and skinnier. I don't really like the word, but that was kind of just the physique I had when I was younger. I
Mm.
think kind of my early teens, the weight started creeping up a bit. And I didn't really do anything about it, to be honest. It just sort of fell off as I got to kind of like 15, 16 and started spurting up and stuff. The weight just kind of seemed to fall off with it. So I didn't really consciously change anything to achieve that, I think. But obviously, at the time when I was quite overweight, as in my early teens, and that it wasn't something I was the happiest about. So it did affect me quite a bit, I think, when I was younger. But and that's definitely part of why I do what I do now as well. Just having been there in the position that I suppose a lot of people that I work with are. Um, and then after I did lose that weight, I was quite skinny, I suppose. So I didn't have much muscle mass, but didn't have much body fat either. So I was quite lean, probably underweight. So it was when I kind of got into the gym and started bulking up a bit more and stuff. Yeah, that's kind of where it went.
Very interesting. So look, that is kind of where we brings us to your decision to go from sports, as you said, like you'd kind of
Mhm.
issues with injuries or whatever. What made you kind of decide that the like making fitness your profession was what made you make that decision?
I always enjoyed helping out with the kids' classes when I was doing the martial arts and stuff and coaching and just kind of that transfer of skills onto other people and teaching, I suppose, to a degree as well. So um, I went to college then. I started studying public health,
Okay.
kind of a random one, but yeah, I sort of fell into that. I dropped out after I think I didn't even make it 6 months. I decided I was going to go into the fitness industry and make something of that instead. So it wasn't that I was struggling with the degree; it was more that I had zero interest in it, and I didn't really see a future doing something that I enjoy out of it. So I wanted to go into the fitness industry and make helping people my kind of full time thing. So
That's an unreal reason to come out of it because it's
mhm.
such a like I rant about it a bit, maybe not so much on the podcast, but like expecting people at 18, 19, 17, 18, 19 years of age to know what they want to do is absolutely daft. But look, here we are.
100%.
So you then decide to go the fitness route.
Mhm.
You set up a business. I know we have you on the site as Adaptive Health. Why did you call it
Mhm.
Adaptive Health? Adaptive Health.
There's a few reasons actually. So yeah, it took me about a year, I'd say, to decide a name. I was, yeah, I didn't really want to have my own name in the business because I wanted it to be more than just being about me. Um, I know there's a lot of good businesses that are called after the person's name or whatever, but yeah, not even the fact that I don't really have particular interest in employing people or anything like that. Not at the moment, anyway. It's just I don't want it to be kind of all about me. So I wanted a name to fit it a bit better. And I suppose Adaptive Health is being able to adapt my service to suit the client's needs, rather than forcing them into my service, if that makes sense. And I suppose as well, to reflect kind of the adaptations that occur along the client's journey as they adapt to their training and nutrition and stuff. So yeah, there's a few kind of layers to it, but yeah, I was happy with the choice eventually.
I absolutely love it. And we talk about it all the time on the podcast. It's just that your job as a coach is not to have a one true way. You're not
Mhm.
Jesus. You're not Jesus. You're not starting a
Yeah,
religion. All you're doing is taking all your
this is
knowledge
it.
and in ways as well adapting it to your clients.
Exactly. Yeah. If I can find a way to make the service suit them a bit more, I'll do it. Like,
Mm.
it's there's no changes that are too hard for me to make to it. Really.
Yeah, 100%. So when someone comes to you, Sean, in terms of whether to find you through the gym advisors, whether to find you on social media, word of mouth, whatever, what what kind of place are they in? What's your most common kind of client that comes to you, and what's their goal?
Yeah, for the majority of people, it will be just weight loss to start with, or they'll think they'll just want to lose weight, and
Mm.
then they lose that initial weight, and then they'll realize, okay, I actually have more work to do, or different goals I want to work on. So it's yeah, that's what it starts out with. Mostly general population, mostly weight loss focused. Occasionally there'll be someone who wants to just bulk up, or someone with sporting performance goals, but the majority of people will be kind of general population weight loss clients to start with, anyway.
Unreal. And we've talked about this a little bit in the past as well, but in terms of,
Mm-hmm.
you say weight loss to start with, and
Mm-hmm.
this is something I'm coming around to more and more lately, is that if we just focus on weight loss for the entire duration, all we'll have is a kind of a churning through of clients, and it's not ideal. We want to
100%.
focus on things that were more sustainable but more meaningful as well. So like performance
Yeah.
based. Is there something that what do you kind of, how do you try and get people's mindset changed that little bit from just weight loss?
Yeah, I suppose just trying to get them to see the benefits, of focusing on health first.
Mm.
That's kind of one of my main ethoses with the business is to have a health first approach, and try not to do anything with anyone that will hinder their health, either short term or long term health. Um, so yeah, just trying to get them developing more goals for themselves, because I think with goal setting it has to be something that you decide yourself. So if someone tries to force goals upon you, it's just not going to work. Like, so it has to be something that they discover for themselves, so I can kind of lead them down that path more, by setting them smaller goals or helping them set smaller goals, and then from that they can just realize that having more health focused things is going to be of nothing but benefit to them, I suppose.
Unreal. I really like that. And on that note, a little bit, I suppose, because people do have that initial goal of weight loss, while I'm trying to, as a business, we're trying to kind of get to more performance based stuff. People do have that initial goals. What are the kind of non-negotiables that come with if you decide to, I'm going to lose some weight? What would you be advising people?
Well, to start with, I suppose a lot of people don't realize that there's a difference between weight loss and fat loss. So you can lose weight on scales without losing fat, and vice versa as well. Your body fat percentage can change without the scales changing much or changing at all. Um, so yeah, the most important thing, and the essential thing with any weight loss journey is you have to be in a calorie deficit. So if you do have that goal of fat loss, or people usually call it weight loss, just you have to be in a calorie deficit. You'll defy the laws of physics otherwise if you're if you're losing weight without being in a calorie deficit. So that's the first and foremost thing. But that alone isn't really helpful, I think. So I think a lot of people are starting to realize that more now, and they're hearing the word calorie deficit, and it's like, what does that mean? So it's essentially just eating less calories than you consume on a daily basis. And then the way that we do this, there can be 100 different ways to do it. So it's completely individual. There's certain habits and behaviors that'll be common from client to client that'll be helpful in losing weight, but it is a very individual thing.
I do see that in on social media a lot where people are preaching the gospel of calorie deficit, and obviously
Yeah,
obviously it's massive. But in terms of actual adherence, and as you said, there's loads of different ways to get there.
yeah,
How what's your method or technique of getting people to into a calorie deficit without
absolutely.
causing negative, like harmful, negative feelings, or they're constantly starving or whatever? How do you get them
Yeah.
into that and get them to adhere to it as well?
Okay. Yeah. So the number one thing for adherence has to be enjoyment. So you have to enjoy the approach that you're doing, I think, to a degree anyway, in terms of both nutrition and training.
Mm.
And as for keeping it health conscious, I suppose not being very careful with the language that you use around food and stuff and around weight loss, um, to help not develop a negative mindset for the client. And just focusing on ensuring that they have the basic things like enough fruit and veg in their diet, and make sure that you're not creating deficiencies if you're given like sample meal plans. A lot of that's a fairly common thing in the industry, that people unintentionally kind of create or vitamin and mineral deficiencies for clients. So yeah, just those basic things of ensuring that they're getting enough fruit and veg, enough water, enough fiber, stuff like that. And then as for actually getting them into the deficit, so I've got a lot of different kind of tiers of nutrition advice that I'll give to someone. It might be portion sizes, it might be them keeping food diaries or photo food diaries. Um, it might be just kind of general guidelines and stuff, or then it might be more in depth, like sample meal plans and macro tracking, calorie tracking, and stuff like that. So again, it is a very individual thing. I say that a lot, but yeah, it's completely kind of client dependent, I suppose. Again,
And so it should be. In fairness,
yeah,
I like, it comes back to the point that like a number on a scale doesn't fucking matter. And tracking that
exactly.
is every time we talk to people about that sort of things, it's more of tracking a number of factors rather than just one number, and especially just doing one number
This is it.
once a week, where you sit in front of a or
Yeah, for sure.
you stand in front of a crowd of people at a Weight Watchers club or whatever it would be, and the cheer if you lose 1 pound, and throw tomatoes at you if you gain 1 pound. So that's the kind of the mentality we're trying to get away from.
Absolutely, yeah. It's insanity, really. Like the
Really, really is. One thing that is interesting to me though is that this idea of losing, and you were right earlier on when you said difference between fat loss and weight loss, of course.
Mm.
And again, what you said in terms of being careful around language, I should be more careful myself. But how is it possible for someone to be losing body fat and either preserving muscle mass or even gaining muscle mass?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. It's only a more recent thing. There's a lot of people who will still say that you can't actually gain muscle while you're in a deficit, but it's actually not true. You actually can. Just it'll be to a much lesser degree, especially the further into your training kind of and gym career as you get. The the ability to build muscle in a deficit will kind of go down and down and down. So, but it is possible, and it's definitely possible to preserve muscle mass while you're kind of losing weight in a deficit. So, kind of some ways that I'd be looking to do this is keeping things like a high protein diet. So, a certain amount of protein per day, as much as possible. It's okay if there's a few days where it's kind of less, but as much as possible, keeping enough protein in your diet. Supplements, things like creatine are helpful, and then just getting enough rest and recovery and stress management as you can. So, not easy things to do by any means, but those are the kind of key things that I'd have in place while someone's in a deficit to avoid any kind of muscle loss or anything like that. And obviously, keeping up resistance training as well. That's the most important thing. So,
Of course, and of those basics, I really love it. But I'm thinking, you mentioned supplements, and they have
mm-hmm.
sometimes in some people's minds, and in some cases, it's justified that supplements might have a negative connotation.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does you mentioned creatine? What does creatine do, and how does it help you?
Yeah, so it's essentially just it's mostly a kind of strength and power supplement, but it is beneficial in muscle mass as well. So you can get it from food, but you can only get very small amounts, only from things like red meat and stuff. And even if you're having that every day, you're probably not having enough to get enough creatine to have an effect. So I'd say for anyone who is looking to supplement the creatine, go for creatine monohydrate. So between 3 and 5 grams per day. So say for like a smaller female or a lighter female, maybe more towards the 3 grams, and then for a kind of a heavier male, up to kind of that 5 grams per day. So And the only people that it's recommended to kind of avoid it is people with pre-existing kidney conditions or people who are at more risk of kidney conditions. So other than that, it's of benefit for most people. And it's not one that you need to kind of cycle on or off or stop taking for a while. You can just kind of continuously take it year round.
I want to move on a little bit to your own story in terms of professional fitness and how like the difference between being a professional and before you were a professional and how that differs. But the last thing
Yeah.
I'll leave you with, in terms of weight loss, there's so much misinformation out there. There's so much nonsense out there. What would you like? What's the one message you give to your clients every time that a new client comes to you in regards to weight loss?
Weight loss, yeah. So I
Fat
suppose
loss.
something that I wish I'd known myself, kind of years back as well, is that you don't have to eat foods that you don't enjoy. So there's absolutely no time where you should be trying to force food into you if you don't enjoy it. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for most people and the most important thing.
100%. And with the help, like I said, with the help of a coach, that is a lot easier to do rather than
That's it.
not knowing what's calories and what macros are in particular types of food.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I want to move on a little bit, like I said, to fitness. When we talked about it a little bit, I suppose, but what's the difference for you in terms of fitness before you became professional? I know you were kind of you're in sports and whatever else, but like, how do you approach fitness differently now than you did when you weren't doing it as a job?
Yeah, I suppose in terms of the work that I do, it's just a lot of expansion of my knowledge and the circumstances and goals that I'm working with. So I suppose, I mean, before I was a PT and nutritionist, I didn't have to know anything about PCOS or IBS or mental health challenges to a degree, and things like that, and medications and stuff and injuries. So it's just having to incorporate all of these things as they come up with various clients and stuff, and various different goals as well, like people preparing for kind of sports that I never would have been involved in. So, yeah, just basically expanding kind of my knowledge and my scope as much as I can. Things that I never would have done if I hadn't been gotten involved in the industry, I suppose.
Is there one thing, Sean, that you would look back on qualifications or whatever that you came out with? Is there one thing you wish you knew when you were qualified, and that comes up all the time with people?
Before I was qualified, is it?
Yeah, well, so when you come out of your qualification, and we all come out of qualifications, we think we're great, and we think we know everything. Is there one thing you look back on and go, shit, I wish I'd known this, and like if for someone who might be recently qualified,
In terms of actual fitness and nutrition knowledge, not so much, but more so spending time learning how to deal with people and becoming better at people is such a big part of the job. And without it, you'll go nowhere in the industry, I think. So that is probably the most important thing for any coach, really, is being able to help people and motivate people and listen to people. I think listening is probably the biggest thing, to be honest. So yeah, that's probably what I tell myself.
I love it because it is there's such a balance in the fitness industry where you have all these, like, again, I'll say evidence based isn't the word that I'm rallying against. It's we should be going evidence based, but there's also a social element to it as well. Like whether it's classes or
100%, yeah.
whether it's the one-to-one interaction in terms of clients or whatever, whether it's on Zoom or in person, So no, it's definitely a people. A people industry. We need to keep people happy. We need to change people's lives. So,
absolutely.
Sean, in lockdown, out of lockdown, what is the favorite part of your job?
I suppose having an impact on people's lives and having that positive change, being a part of that change. I suppose I'm only laying the groundwork for the clients and they're doing the work, but just being a small part of that change is unbelievable, to be honest. And every time I get a message with a client thanking me or a client saying this has changed my life occasionally as well, it just blows my mind every time, to be honest. And I don't think that'll ever change. And then since I've been fully self-employed, I suppose just being my own boss is pretty nice as well. So definitely I work more now, but it's more fulfilling work.
That is good. You need to be a self-starter, but when it's work that you enjoy, work that you love, it's easily done. Like,
this is it. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
I really enjoy, just in terms of, you talked about the idea of your favorite part being around change. You didn't say this, I'll say it. Changing people's lives. Is an analogy Keith Granger made a few episodes ago, good few episodes ago at this stage, and he said you're constantly at the part of the movie where the character is turning around. and
Yeah, love it.
they're either at rock bottom or just above rock bottom, and that's just such an inspirational and really cool place to live your life. And it's something that PTs maybe don't take or sometimes take for granted, but it's a really cool place
Definitely.
to be. You know,
Yeah, definitely. I can't imagine myself doing that better, to be honest.
love it, absolutely love it. So after all that positivity, what's your least what's the least favorite part of your job?
I suppose remembering everything is my my downfall. So if I didn't have my little black book, the diary there, I'd say I'd lose my head. To be honest, it has absolutely everything I need to do in it. So the smallest things I have to write down to remember. So a bit of a goldfish memory, but I suppose that's constantly having the head full. I suppose is one thing, and then maybe kind of being everything as well. So being the coach, the marketer, the content creator. Um, that does get a bit difficult at times, but it kind of comes with the territory, I suppose.
It comes with the territory, unfortunately, and we're trying to fight against that.
This is it.
Fight against that to the point where at least you can be a coach and you just need to be a bare minimum digital marketer. You don't have to do absolutely everything.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. No,
Unfortunately, the digital marketers own everything these days. But we'll keep fighting
this
the
is
good.
it.
We'll keep fighting the good fight. Who is there? Someone it can be in the industry. It can be someone in your daily life. Is there someone out there who kind of inspires you to kind of work harder and try and get to that level?
There's a lot of individuals, all right. So I won't name anyone for fear of upsetting someone. But I suppose when I kind of got into the gym first, it was kind of the big time YouTubers and bodybuilders and all that. But don't really follow all that stuff anymore. So now it's kind of the coaches out there who kind of practice with integrity for years on end and who keep on learning and who are kind of committed to making the industry a better place. So they're the ones that I kind of want to associate myself and aspire to be like, I suppose. And then just on an everyday basis, the clients, people that I'm working with. And I said this on a post recently, just seeing the challenges that some of them have gone through, especially over the last year, is unbelievably inspiring. Like, and that's all the inspiration I really need most days. Like, there's just clients there who've been trying to juggle having kids at home, 3, 4 kids at home, losing their jobs, and then trying to balance their fitness with it and doing a cracking job for the most part. Like, it's unbelievable to see. Like,
Unreal. Um, you talked about it there a little bit actually in terms of the being an everything marketer, all that sort of stuff. Is there
mhm.
something as a personal trainer you would want your clients to know, or just the people who work outside the industry to know?
um, about
Just
the job itself, is it?
yeah, about the job, about your life, like about the stuff that you do, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I suppose you get a lot of negativity. I think when you start out, or I did anyway, and I've heard of other coaches getting it, especially if you're kind of going out on your own and stuff. Um, I suppose from people who are probably stems from their own unhappiness, but without getting too into philosopher mode, it's kind of a small town mindset, I suppose. That kind of comes in Ireland a lot, I think, to be honest. But yeah, I have got a fair bit of that, or at least enough of that over the years. But it's never really stopped me. But I suppose that is something that kind of comes with the territory again. Um, and then as well, you do work kind of a lot of unsociable hours, I suppose, to start out with. Anyway, it's kind of changed for me now being online. My hours are a bit nicer and stuff, but um, yeah, those are a couple of things I suppose that people might not realize.
I think I said this before as well. One thing that we struggled with at the beginning of the gym advisors was that mentality, small time mentality, or just have what I hold, fight against like
Hmm.
anything else. You're competing for every person on the like that person that walks down the road. Me and you are competing for that person.
Yeah.
And I think we're at a stage now where people who are attracted to the site are people who are willing to begin to create an industry. So people who aren't involved in the industry at all,
Okay.
bring them into it, but also work together and talk to the people who are also on the site, and having that group or that community of people
Definitely.
is kind of something that I love seeing, because the people who are attracted to the site are like people like yourself, Sean, just people who care about
Yeah.
their clients, people who want to grow the industry and help as many
Hmm.
people as possible, you know?
Yeah, I talk about like it's kind of an abundance mindset rather than a scarcity
Yeah.
mindset, and knowing that there's enough out there for everyone, um, and just being committed to kind of the fighting the good fight. So, um, yeah, like comparison and that to a degree is fine, but you want healthy comparison, I suppose,
Yeah.
and none of the kind of toxicness that comes with it. So,
Yeah, exactly.
just avoiding that is
Yeah, particularly when you talk about like online coaching like 2020 brought a lot of shit. 2021 hasn't been much better,
mhm.
but you are now competing with everyone all over the world, but for everyone in the world. So like your clients can
This is it.
come from absolutely anywhere. So we're not.
Absolutely, there's more. There's more than enough to go around.
Yeah.
And if you look at like base things like obesity rates, they're going up and up and up. No matter how many PTs seem to be around. So, and then more and more people are getting into training and exercise as well. So there's plenty to go around. Like,
Yeah, I think there's a middle ground to be found there. There's like obviously obesity rates are going up, but a lot of people are very love back in the day at least were loving competitions and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah,
people are getting fitter and fitter. But I think there's a middle ground of people there that literally, and we talked about it a little bit with Maliki a few months ago at this stage, who just in terms of all they want exercise to do is provide that base where they can play five-a-side football and not be wrecked with their mates.
100%.
They can run around with their kids, all that sort of stuff. That exercise isn't the be all and end all. It's a support to their life, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. Just being fit for life, I suppose, and that's kind of probably what my own goals would be for my training and stuff now. Just like when I go to see my niece and nephew, being able to lift them up over my head as they get a bit older and stuff. It's just things like that. Like in the future, I suppose, if and when I do have kids, just being able to run around with them. So yeah, kind of focusing on like longevity and stuff. I think it's a great goal to have. And as you say, it's kind of just what a lot of people want, really.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a middle ground there that we can tap into as a company, as an industry, and try and make sure that a lot of people newly come to the industry and make sure that there's enough, as you said, to go around.
100%.
So one thing on that, like we often talk about motivation being a nonsense word, and it kind of is, I suppose, that we talk to people. But when say a beginner comes to you and they've stayed with you for 4 or 6 weeks, the results have gone up and up and up, and they're going really well, and then they hit a plateau or their moods change a little bit. How do you manage to, or what advice would you have for people who maybe have hit that plateau and just want to keep their motivation going to keep going, like?
Yeah, so I suppose kind of going back to the adherence thing, there has to be enjoyment. So I think if you're doing some kind of incorporating things that the client will enjoy, that's going to keep them on the path, I suppose, most of the time. But and then it's building up habits and routines, I suppose. I don't like to be too habits focused and try and get people living their life on autopilot. It's not really what we want either. But just have a load of zombies going around the place. But yeah. Yeah, I think habits and routines definitely do play a part, and feeding more towards discipline rather than motivation, I suppose. So a quote that I really do like is, if you only did things on the days that you felt good, you wouldn't get very much done. So just kind of showing up on, regardless of how you feel, and getting things done. And obviously there'll be weeks or days together where things don't go to plan, and that's fine because we all have them. So when clients do have those weeks, it's just listening to them and working through the problems with them and finding how we can shift the approach to keep them on track, I suppose.
Yeah, do you still feel like there's a mindset out there in terms of, as it relates to personal trainers, from people who are outside the industry who might think that a personal trainer is literally that guy who is the drill sergeant or just trying to whip you into shape or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even when I get inquiries and stuff, people are like, "Oh, I need someone to kind of crack the whip and stuff and give out to me," but it's not really what I do. And then any times I have tried to do it in the past, it hasn't worked out well, or it hasn't. Yeah, it's just people don't want to be told what to do as much as they think they do. They just need support, really, for the most part, I find.
I love that, because there is so much more to it than like just taking into account situation. And I think we have a tendency, as just as humans, or maybe it's Irish, I'm not sure, where we absolutely kick the shite out of ourselves for one mistake, two mistakes, whatever. And just having someone like yourself, Sean, who is kind of there in their corner and wants them to succeed, invested in them succeeding, and just to go, yeah, that happened, shit happens, and this is what we're going to do to fix it, you know.
Yeah, to be honest, one of the biggest problems I see in the industry is the ones who say you need to try harder next week. I mean, who does that help? Like, it's yeah, I don't understand how people are paid to do things like that.
There's a lot of things in this world I don't understand, Sean, and that is just one of them. I want to finish up a little bit, actually, just in terms of, you did mention a quote there. We're not massive on quotes here, but do you have a favorite inspirational, motivational quote? Is it literally that one you just talked about?
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about a lot lately. As well as there probably is a few more, but off the top of my head, I can't think of any other than that really. That's Mr. Jamie Alderton. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah,
He,
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
yeah, so
it is so true. In fairness, like just showing up, and to the point where back when we could go into gyms, I used to go into a gym, and if I felt shit at the start of it, I'd go. If I show up and I still feel shit after 15, 20 minutes, I'll rock home. That's fine. But
absolutely,
but when you turn up and you feel shit, that generally just wafts away
yeah, for
after a few
most
minutes.
people,
So
absolutely, yeah, no,
there is that having that balance of, um, like I said, kicking yourself into gear to get yourself there, but not whipping yourself to the point where you're burnt out or whatever.
exactly, yeah. I think that's a misconception a lot of people have with exercise, that they need to run themselves into the ground like every session, but um, yeah, you're kind of building rather than testing, I suppose, when you're training.
I
So
love.
you're building your capacity rather than testing your limits, I suppose, every session. That's
I love that. That's a good enough inspirational quote for me. In fairness, I might use that one myself. So you're also adding some songs to our playlist, so people can go and
yeah.
search out the Gym Advisor playlist on Spotify. It's not the easiest these days because playlists are a bit buried, but go and search the Gym Advisor playlist. You'll find us. Give us your first of your three songs.
So the first one is "Break Stuff" by Limp Bizkit.
It's just one of those days where you don't want to wake up. Everything is fucked, everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify ripping someone's head off. No human contact.
So that's for more of the kind of heavy lifting for when you kind of you need to go into that kind of deeper place. Yeah, that's when you can draw on for that.
That's for the PBs. Love it. And your second one.
Exactly.
And your second one.
Hypnotize the second one. Yeah.
Brooklyn bullshit, we on it.
Biggie, 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 can't you see? Sometimes your words just hypnotize me. And I just love your flashy ways. I guess that's why they're broken, you're so fake. Biggie, 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 can't you see? Sometimes your words just hypnotize me.
Yeah, that's just a classic feel good one for me to get me into the zone, I suppose.
That's really smooth. I like that one.
Yeah, it's a nice one, right? Last one then is Tiny Tempa, Pass Out.
Pass out. Let it go away. We won't come down until we hit the ground. Pass out.
That one was actually the kind of pre-competition one for me back when I was in the martial arts days, just fighting through for every last second, I suppose. That was
Really, yeah, class.
yeah, that was the big one for me back then.
Awesome. So there's three different genres there now. Are we?
Yeah.
Is there something that brings you through, or is it just like whatever I'm feeling, or if it comes on, it gives me a different mood for different things? What's the reason for them?
Just to have always kind of been a part of the training playlist for me, I suppose. Just kind of any kind of rap or hip hop in general. Anything kind of feel good and a good beat is anything to get me going, really.
Awesome. So, Sean, people can find you on thegymadvisor.e/adaptive health, but you're also on social media if you want to point people in the right direction.
Yeah. So on Instagram, it's Sean_adaptive health, and then the website is www.adaptivehealth.ie.
Awesome. Sean, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks very much, man.
Thanks so much, Andy. Appreciate it a lot.
To the rest of you, though, as always, hassle the fitness, baby.